Welcome to Eco-Friendly Homes, your go-to podcast for learning all things healthy, efficient, and eco-friendly in your home. I'm your host, Madison Hopkins, and I'm so thankful that you're here with me today. I'm a certified green real estate agent in Denver, Colorado, helping you live more sustainably by sharing tangible steps each month on how to reduce your home's emissions, save money, buy cleaner, build greener, and to discuss what an eco-friendly home could and does look like. If you're ready to work with me as your Denver-based real estate agent, email me, madison@movingwithmadison.com. And remember to hit subscribe so you can get notified every second and fourth Wednesday of the month when I release an episode on how to live more eco-friendly in your home. Now sit back, relax, grab your favorite tea, have one of your favorite cookies, and enjoy the show. This podcast episode is sponsored by Millennium Mortgage, your lending solutions for the place you call home. Podcast listeners, I'm interrupting the show real quick to give you a quick Denver real estate inside scoop. And today we're discussing, will home prices go up or down due to rising interest rates? After the 2008 housing crash, homes stopped being built. They just didn't need them at that time. But our population continued to age, and now the two largest generations in our nation, Gen Y and Gen Z, are at the age where they're ready to buy a home. But the inventory is so low and the demand is so high. So long as the inventory is low, the demand to buy is high, and the amount of people looking to buy is high too, then the sellers have no need to lower your price for your home. Just because one buyer can no longer afford this house doesn't mean the next buyer can't. Hey, podcast listeners, and welcome to the latest episode of Eco-Friendly Homes. I'm here today with Ashley Diedenhofen, and she is the infamous Science by Ashley on Instagram and TikTok, and Ashley Deeds on YouTube. So hopefully many of you listening today are also familiar with Ashley's science education platforms, but I've become very fascinated with your platform, Ashley. I really love the content that you put out. It looks good. It's eco-friendly. It's science forward. So thank you for being a guest on our show today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit, please, about Science by Ashley. How did you start creating content? Well, I guess we kind of know how you create content, but why did you start creating science forward content?
Yeah, so when I was in college, I graduated college back in 2019. And while I was studying biology, I realized I absolutely love not only learning science, but also educating others about it. And I also realized, I did it pretty well. I liked coming up with analogies and ways that make people be like, oh, now that makes sense. So I knew I wanted to do something with that, so some sort of science education, but instead of going to a traditional classroom, I wanted to create it for a wider audience, so using social media. But it wasn't until the pandemic started and I didn't have my job anymore that I finally had the time to actually be like, okay, I'm going to actually, sit down and draft out some scripts and start filming and teach myself how to actually do this. I'd had a little bit of film experience in the past from a summer course I did, but a lot of the stuff, I kind of taught myself some animations and graphics and stuff like that was just new to me. So started with YouTube. Those videos those were more for family and friends, but eventually made my way through Instagram and then to TikTok, where I actually started creating the shorter videos, and those took off and did really well.
Well, it's super, as we all know, creating content for YouTube versus TikTok is pretty drastically different. What are some of the challenges for you with that and how you give your message? You're really fast on TikTok. Your videos are quick. You have to pay attention. I usually watch them at least 3 times to make sure I caught what you said. But you also keep it very simple. Some of your favorite videos of mine are your food, not waste, because we're trying to not waste food recovery videos.
Yeah. The shorter videos are definitely a bit more of a challenge, even though you would think, oh, it's less filming, right? It's less time, but you have to film everything and then cut it or script it. So, I'm only saying exactly 110 words. How can I get my message across in that much time? So a big part of that is, well, you said you have to watch it a couple times. So of course with TikTok that, helps with the algorithms. So you want to give people information that they can get one time, but maybe they want to save it to refer back or maybe they'll watch it twice so it really soaks in. So that's, just a little kind of strategy type thing, I guess. And in terms of talking fast, that's just something my family has made fun of me for it my whole life. They're always like, slow down, talk slower. And finally I found an actual job that, benefits from talking fast.
Nice. You're like, my time has come.
Pretty much I'm like, oh, I do well here. This is good.
That's awesome. So you currently live in California, right? And is that where you're from?
Yeah, I'm in San Diego now, and I've lived up in the Bay Area and in San Diego and Santa Barbara as well, so all over.
Nice. And then a little bit of your background, you told me you really like to scuba dive and you did a lot of that living in Australia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was after I graduated college. I went and moved there for a little bit.
Do you think that kind of influenced you to start doing YouTube and Reels?
Yeah, I think a big part about it, I kind of knew I wanted to do something like that, doing the videos, the educational videos. But I think a lot of my friends will come up and say, I can never make videos. Like I'm too, self-conscious or would be nervous about how people would take it or think people are like, oh, you're trying to be an influencer, you're trying to do this. And just people have that perception. But I think being so far away from everyone I knew, it kind of made it so I didn't have that perception as much. So it was easier just to be like, I don't care if I put out cringy, embarrassing videos because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to do it. And now I'm home and I'm a lot more confident with it. So I guess that helped. Who knows?
I definitely agree with you. The scripts help a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really important. And I think that I did a writing minor in college with an emphasis on science communication. And one of the things we learned was, what writing for web content. So that was more blogs and stuff, and then other kind of script writing and just the different skills I picked up there really allowed me to, get a hook and get to the point, but say the information in a way that's captivating, but also, informative for the people that want to watch all the way through, stuff like that.
Nice. Yeah, my boyfriend definitely helps me with that kind of thinking because I studied anthropology in college. So definitely was slightly disassociated from engaging writing. As I mean, you probably also studied a lot of science, science writing versus engaging writing is completely different. But you also said something that I kind of wanted to tap back into, and I forgot the word that you said already, but it sparked my interest. So, I think it was influencer. You said, yeah, you're so I'm not trying to be an influencer. And I think about this frequently because I think a lot of people who identify as an influencer could really, it's just a new word instead of saying a commercial model or a spokesmodel or a spokesperson or something, because that's essentially what a lot of influencers are. They're focusing on beauty products, clothes, makeup, which is slightly different than beauty products, but could fall into the same category.
Yeah, skincare versus makeup stuff. Yeah.
Right. So it's it's really a spokesperson role, but I like how you're an influencer in the sense of that you influence people to behave better. So it's not necessarily you're influencing people to buy something, but you're trying to help people behave better with store your food better, think about the ecosystem. So do you want to talk about your mindset around that?
Yeah, I guess for a while I kind of steered away from the word influencer just because I felt it did kind of group you in that category of and I do I work with different brands, different eco-friendly products, because that's how I can get an income while making videos.
Yeah, of course. No hate, no judge, just putting words out there. It's all a good thing,
Yeah. But I definitely even I think on my LinkedIn, I write content creator, right? So there's, the different terms that sound a little bit more, I guess, professional or what is it, reputable in a professional sense. But yeah, I guess you just have to kind of change your mindset. Kind of what you said about the word influencer. It's not necessarily, you have to see where the root of the word actually came from, which is okay, you're going to influence people. You can influence people. I mean, you mentioned my food waste videos. That's a really large part of what I do is make those how to reduce food waste videos. And even if people don't care about the environment, I hope they do, obviously, but maybe they don't, but they want to reduce food waste because it saves some money, or they just get tired that every time they buy strawberries, they get moldy. Just influencing people that to think differently about their day-to-day. Hey, maybe I should freeze the strawberries because I remember seeing Ashley did it this week, or something along those lines. Just changing mindsets, I guess, but without being here's a lot of information, or you should think this, you're wrong for thinking that. Just influencing the little changes in your life that would have a larger change if you can then influence others, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally like that. I recently did 2 podcast recording. One was with We Don't Waste, which is a food recovery system, and Scraps, which is a composting service here in Denver. So you talk about your freezer all the time and like how important, or you showcase your freezer and like freeze the strawberries. I mean, after learning about food recovery and food preservation a little bit more, honestly, I think our refrigerators should be made completely different with like a much bigger freezer portion, because it's like a really important part of our food recovery and food preservation.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other ways to reduce food waste too. I think I use freezer a lot just because that's a pretty easy thing. Some people are like, oh, I don't have time to, soak my strawberries in vinegar. I don't have time to make banana bread out of the brown bananas. And I'm like, okay, so like when in doubt, it's very likely you can put it in your freezer, and then here's how to use it from that. So I think that's probably why that seems to be a recurring theme. But yeah, there's certain things though. I have like a decent size freezer. I don't think it's like necessarily huge, but it is one of those vertical ones. And the problem is we have so much old stuff in there. It's like bad. Because I live with my mom, and we have so much old stuff in there that I feel like I actually use a very small amount of space for like my food waste recovery stuff, because the other things are just like boxes that have stayed in there because they're like bought from my brothers and they haven't been home or something like that. So it's a smaller
Yeah.
amount of room than you would think sometimes.
Okay. Maybe I need to learn to shove things in there better.
It's like Tetris, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Need to Tetris my freezer better. Well, so like as far as being a content creator, where do you want to take Science by Ashley?
Yeah, so I mean, I want to keep growing it. I hope eventually down the line I'll do full time. And since I do focus a lot on reducing food waste and food science videos, I would love to actually go to farms that are growing their food more sustainably and highlight them and talk about, like, I met this one guy because I was volunteering with Surfrider, and he's from Costa Rica, and he has a sustainable coffee farm there. And I'm like, I would be so curious, like, what does that entail? Like, what makes coffee sustainable versus not sustainable? Like, is it how the workers are treated? Is it, if there's clear cut forest versus integrated? Like, I don't know this. And I think that would be such a cool video, both for like cool little TikTok videos, but also like a longer YouTube video, just because I think people kind of are out of touch with where their food comes from. And like, it's something I'm always really curious about. And I know I've talked to people and they're curious about learning, where their food comes from and understanding and having that connection more. So I would love to do. And then I also, because I'm very passionate about science communication and helping scientists communicate their work better. So I would love to kind of work as like a science communication trainer or consultant and teach scientists how to use social media to educate others.
Is your education background in science, but you said you majored in writing? So is it both? Did you dual?
My major was in biology, but my minor was in writing with an emphasis on science communication.
Nice. So yeah, now it's just like figuring out how to actually implement that.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I did that little bit of film training. So I'm kind of just picking out the pieces of my education and combining them together.
So have you like done anything specifically with your biology degree yet? Because I know, like you said, you've gone scuba diving, which is super. I did scuba diving for 6 weeks in the Bahamas, like over 10 years ago, which is kind of crazy, but it was like so much fun and so beautiful. So do you have any like examples of ways that you've found you can use that so far?
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, my main job right now, I work in biotech. So I guess that's, linking in the biology degree. And then when I first moved to Sydney, my first, like, I guess, job that looped in looped in science was I was working as a science educator at the Sydney Observatory. So I would teach kids like planetarium shows. So that was fun.
Oh, I love that. I feel like that's probably helped tie into your content creation too, like teaching young brains how to learn about science, which is basically like on TikTok and Instagram, like you can't get too specific into the science. You do have to like kind of keep it common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll sometimes do more science. Like I do a lot of the sustainability, like food waste videos, but sometimes I'll do a bit of a science video. Like if there's a trend going on, usually a food trend, like Oh, this was a year ago, and there was the video of someone mixing like flour and water and kneading it, but they were making what was called seitan, so seitan, which is typically known as like a vegan protein and it's super high in protein. And people were like, no, that's just fried bread. So I made a video like duetting it and going into the details of like why it's not like how the flour and the water, when you're treating it that way, you're rinsing off the starch and you're forming those protein bonds and linkages. And I'm probably explaining it terribly now because it's been over a year since I did that, but still it was kind of just a way to loop science into something that was, in everyone's brains being like, oh my gosh, how did that turn into a high protein thing when it was just water and flour?
That's cool. That's super cool. Do you just know these things about food because of your degree in biology, or did you have to sort of niche into like a food study at one point?
I never actually niched into a food study. I've always loved cooking, I guess. So it's always been something that, ever since I was young, like when I was like in seventh grade, I was like, I'm going to go own a bakery in Paris. And I loved science too. So I was like, I'm going to own a bakery in Paris, but I'm going to use chemistry to make the cupcakes like super healthy or something like that. I don't know, 11-year-old mind just having those thoughts. But
I
I've always
love
loved
it.
food. Yeah. So I've always loved food and science. So it's actually cool to see I'm doing food and science now after I didn't think I'd ever do food and science together, I guess, since seventh grade. So that was fun. I'm trying to
Super
remember your
cool.
question now. I got on a tangent.
I don't remember my question, so don't worry about it.
Oh, if I niched into food in school.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And you said no, you didn't. You just kind of, it's something that you've always liked.
Yeah, it's something I've always liked. And a lot of, the more sustainability videos on how to reduce food waste, that's a lot of like trial and error. I'll do some research on it, of course, like UC Davis, I know has a lot of food storage information and studies. So I'll, refer to them. Also just, yeah, trial and error, things I've always done that I kind of just, I don't even know if I picked it up on old videos or maybe stuff like my grandma did, or just things I've kind of done my whole life that I'm realizing other people don't. And it's people like share that I shared it. And then with the more sciencey videos, I would typically, certain things like the video I was referring to before, because I took chemistry and organic chemistry, I understand a lot of that protein linkages and kind of how that works. But I had to obviously kind of do a little research and, Google Scholar and refer to some reputable sites and stuff that would have that kind of information.
Okay, so I'm a social scientist, so like you're like it's just in the chemistry class, Madison.
Not all of it, but like certain like basic principles are. And then you kind of like are like, okay, I remember learning that. How does it apply here? And usually you have to do a little extra research to like really like find out how it applies, but you'll just be reading something. You're like, oh, that totally makes sense. I learned that aspect of it.
Well, so like what's been one of your favorite parts about creating content with Science by Ashley? It's like your brand, which I really like that, by the way. I was like, who's Ashley? This is cool. I want to know her. So yeah, I'm super excited to still be talking with you. But like, what's been one of your favorite parts so far of creating this content? Like, is it messages that people give to you, or?
Yeah, well, I'm just stoked on, I guess, a lot of like, obviously it's, it's TikTok, so you'll get negative responses too, but I'm stoked on the amount of like positive responses and, like little community I formed. And it's so fun when, I mean, this happens more on Instagram because people post stories, but people post stories and tag me and be like, oh, I'm making, veggie stock out of my scraps or trying this recipe. So that's been really great. And then I also just love finding, like-minded people that, care about similar things to me or didn't before, but now realize that's something that they do care about. And then, with this as well, I've been able to, I went to a conference recently with other science communicators that, don't use TikTok, they use YouTube, or they have their own podcast, or they write blog posts, or they're looking to get into science communication. So being able to kind of have that brand or that, those videos to kind of like back me and be like, hey, this is what I do. And then I can talk to people what they do. And it kind of just gives me a little bit more like credibility in that space. So I think that's kind of nice, I guess, because I'm
That's cool.
relatively early in my career. So
Yeah, you're super fresh. Well, not super fresh to be useful, everyone. I like being fresh. I think people sometimes, because I started in real estate in 2020, and so a lot of my like close people were like, don't tell people you're new. And I was like, well, I don't really think there's anything wrong with that. I understand that like maybe some people wouldn't want to work with someone who's new, but I think from like one career starter to another. I actually had a friend who used me because I was new in real estate.
Yeah. And you can always bring in a new perspective when you're younger too, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's very
Yeah.
true.
Because I definitely noticed that. I guess my thing is like within the science communication space, when I would like, that was like what the kind of career path I wanted to be on. And when I would like, research it, it was always people that, had gone and gotten a PhD and realized they didn't want to do research and they instead want to focus on science communication. And I was like, I figured this out during my bachelor's degree, like, but am I supposed to go get a master's or a PhD so that I'm more of an expert in something before I can start communicating science? Because science communication in itself is kind of a small but growing field. So
Yeah.
there wasn't like a set path on what you should do. So I guess in that sense, it was nice that I was like kind of maybe not proving myself with X amount of education, but proving that, I've learned how to use this new-ish medium and how to, communicate and, reach people and educate people and cause them to even have behavior changes just in a 1-minute video. So I think that's like cool.
Yeah. So you're like efficient and proficient in the communication aspect of it, which is actually the large portion of it. Cause you said you do the research anyways. So yeah.
Yeah. And I would love to like be that person that's that expert communicator, but also can like talk with scientists and then help scientists to then communicate their work to the public, kind of be that like intermittent. I picture it like an hourglass, like within like scientists and like general public here. And like, you got to filter it like through the science communicators.
That sounds like a really good icon for a logo.
Right. Anyone want to create a logo for me? Just kidding.
Shout out.
Yeah.
Ashley needs an icon and a logo. Anyone out there?
Me searching on Fiverr, being like, oh, but I don't know what I want. I don't know who to reach out to.
Did you find like when you went to the science convention that a lot of people were like into creating really short content or kind of like resisting it? Or how did you feel like your powerhouse of content, which is TikTok and Instagram Reels, but I think probably TikTok a little bit more. Like, how did you feel like that fit into other people's path towards science communication?
Yeah, so it was interesting because I was expecting, well, it was a hybrid conference. So I also went in person. So I met the other, like, I think it was like 100, 150 people that were in person, but there were people online as well. And some online people had that, kind of were within their company, were on TikTok, but not many people in person at all. I was known as like the TikTok girl. A lot of people that's why everyone joked, they're like, I can tell you're younger because you haven't been drained by years of doing your PhD. And I was like, because a lot of them, had finished a PhD or were in the middle of it.
For sure.
And so TikTok was pretty new to a lot of people, but it was funny because like some of the people that were, a little older, like, but had been established in the science communication community for a while, they were like, I've learned all the other platforms, TikTok, that's for you guys to like figure out. But they all found it really interesting. And then other people want to like now kind of collaborate and like want me to help them learn how to do it. Or they're like, you should teach a workshop on how to make a video. So
nice.
something I might do down the line.
Hey, I love that for you. That's so exciting. You like walked into this conference. Now they're already like, come speak at the next one.
That would be so cool. That's like, I'm like, oh, maybe I should do that. That would be kind of fun.
Absolutely. I'm here for that. I'm supporting you doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Just coming up with ideas of like, where I want to take this. Cause I love just creating the content, but I want to, take it a step further too. And I always kind of thought it would be cool to have a business and like, I don't have like an MBA or anything. I don't have that experience, but I always imagined, I don't know if it's because I'm like, oh, I don't want to work for other people. I want to create my own company or something. But yeah, I've kind of always had that mindset. So it's kind of cool to see it actually kind of start to actually envision how it would shape out.
And then one day you can open the bakery in Paris.
Yes, right? I know. I'm like, maybe it'll all loop back around.
Please let me know when you do that. I will come and I will have a biscuit or a cupcake. I've actually tried vigorously to bake without like cane sugar and just use any sort of replacements, but I'm not a chemist. I don't know chemistry. And so I really just kind of have to follow blogs, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But it is a passion deep down.
Yeah, I've definitely, especially at the beginning of COVID, I was deep into my baking phase. I know everyone was doing bread, but it was when I was still living in Australia, and I was living in a house of 5. So I was with my boyfriend and I was with another couple. They were French. And so they baked a lot. And then an Australian guy. And we just were like, okay, pizza night. We're going to make like homemade dough and like all this stuff, or like homemade pasta and even like desserts and stuff too. Cause like I learned some of the recipes from our French housemates, and like they were absolutely amazing. They wrote them in French. So I feel like it's so fancy. I know it's not that fancy, but it like looks pretty, like written in French on a piece of paper. And anyways, it was just really fun.
Do you speak French?
I took when I was in 7th grade, and I thought I would go and have a bakery. I started taking French, and I did 5 years of French. I don't remember much of it, but I could like figure out a recipe enough.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. I love your 7th grade dream so much.
Right. It's kind of fun seeing it like link back around, like, because it wasn't something I really thought of like after like 7th or 8th grade. Like I wanted to be a physical therapist because like I liked science. I wanted to have a more active job, and I had gotten injuries because I was an athlete. And so I was like, I want to be a physical therapist. And I was so like dead set on route for like most of high school, honestly. And then even the beginning of college, I was kind of on that route until I figured out about science communication. And I love marine bio. That was something I did as a kid and loved. So just, I thought I could do science communication with that, and kind of everything came together.
My assumption was that you were a marine biologist.
Yeah, I did a lot of classwork. And so with my bio degree, it was general bio. It was like a bachelor in science and biology. And why I did the general one is because I was getting all my prereq courses that I needed. So if I wanted to go to like physical therapy school or PA school or wherever, but then I did this study abroad in Australia. So that was the first time I went to Australia before I moved there. And it was a marine biology and terrestrial ecology program. And we did like a lot of camping, a lot of backpacking. And then we lived on a couple different islands and did research projects out there. And like, went snorkeling every day, and it was on the Great Barrier Reef. So like absolutely amazing. And so that like got me back into marine bio. I wasn't as a kid, I went to like science camps that were marine bio. So like liked it as a kid as well. So
that's cool. I've always wanted to go to the Great Barrier Reef. I really want to go to Australia. Mine came from seeing the movie Kangaroo Jack.
It's funny, I haven't seen that. I feel like people always reference it.
Do they? Maybe it's just because you've been to Australia and it's like our mental Australian movie, but
I always think of Finding Nemo. That's my Australian movie. But
oh yeah, that makes sense too.
Or Mary Kate and Ashley. They have one where they go to Australia.
I don't remember that one.
Oh, see, it's old, but
like in some of the first memories.
Exactly, right? I think I was talking with someone. It's because my name's Ashley. I feel like it's also brought up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Well, cool. Well, I'm so glad that I got to talk with you a little bit, Ashley, and learn about your goals with Science by Ashley, what you intend to do with it, and like why you got into it and how. And I'm really just amazed at your content. So please keep making it, and please keep educating people, because I think behavior change is the ultimate goal here. Like that's my goal with my podcast, is to help people create a more eco-friendly home, whether that's be connecting them to resources like you, through food waste and just ecology and science awareness, or like building differently. It's a wide variety of things that people can do, but I think behavior change is definitely the ultimate goal.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome. I look forward. I was kind of watching some of your videos, and I look forward to watching more of them because I really love what you're doing as well.
Thank you.
Women supporting women businesses, right?
Yeah. I love it. Actually, before we cut out, how do you want people to reach out to you?
They can reach out to me through Instagram messages or through my email, which is scibyash@gmail.com. So it's Science by Ashley shortened.
And I'll have all those linked in the show notes.
Sounds great.
Thanks so much for being a guest, Ashley. And I will see you on the other side of either TikTok or Instagram or YouTube.
Sounds great. It was great talking to you.
Podcast listeners, thank you so much for listening to today's show. I really hope you learned something new from your go-to podcast on all things eco-friendly in the home. I'm your host, Madison Hopkins, and I am signing off. If you would like to contact me, email me, madison@movingwithmadison.com. And remember to hit subscribe so you can get notified every second and fourth Wednesday of the month on how to live more eco-friendly in your home. And I will see y'all next time.